A beautiful orange flower that you can find growing along sunny areas of much of the Appalachian Trail, Daylily is one of the lesser known trail edibles. In addition to being very beautiful, Daylily is a great food to cook while in camp. Plus, the entire plant is edible, so you have a number of different ways to prepare it for your meals. One prep option is to pluck the small shoots of the plant and boil them like potatoes, or you can use the orange flower petals to add color and flavor to your salads. The flower buds are also particularly tasty, and you can saute them in olive oil and garlic for a little post-hike treat. Okay, while we usually don't encourage people to eat pine needles, you can use them to make a delicious tea that's high in vitamin C. There are many types of pines along the entirety of the Appalachian Trail, from loblolly pine to pitch pine, so your pine needle supply is nearly limitless. All you need to do to make this vitamin-packed tea is to collect pine needles and steep them in boiling water. It's best to collect very young green pine needles rather than the older ones on the forest floor, as they're higher in nutrients. Once you have your collection of pine needles, you can steep them in water and mix them with a little sugar for a lovely hot drink after a long day of hiking. If you like hiking, we can almost assure you that you've seen rock tripe before, but you've probably never even noticed that it was there. That's because this little black and green lichen tends to grow on rocks, which isn't exactly the first place you'd look when searching for edible plants. Rock tripe is edible, though it has been used by humans for sustenance for thousands of years. However, due to its fairly unappetizing appearance, most people don't get excited at the prospect of digging into a whole plate full of rock tripe. To eat rock tripe, it's worth soaking it in water until it becomes quite soft. You may want to change out the soaking water a few times to help remove some of the bitterness of the lichen. Then you can boil it and season it however you like to have a simple meal on the trail. Although they look very similar to blueberries, huckleberries are their own type of berry. You can find them pretty much everywhere on the Appalachian Trail, especially from Virginia to Pennsylvania. These edibles grow in a bush that's usually about waist high with dark green leaves. The berries themselves tend to be a bit smaller than a wild blueberry, and you'll find a small cluster of them on each stem. You can eat them just like you would a blueberry or use them on top of your oatmeal for extra nutrition on the trail. Often spotted near larger huckleberry plants, wintergreen is a great way to freshen up on the trail. You might recognize the name wintergreen from some of your favorite chewing gum flavors. In fact, the flavor of the actual wintergreen plant is quite similar and will leave behind a great minty taste in your mouth. If you're confused as to whether or not you found the right plant, simply pick a few leaves, rip one in half and smell it to see if it has that minty scent. Once you find the right plant, you can steep the leaves in water to create a fun little mint tea on the trail. Wild leeks, also known as ramps, are a type of wild onion that looks very similar to, well, leeks. They're a bulbous plant with large dark green leaves that sort of look like the shoots coming out of the ground. You'll often find them in Georgia around early April, but do take care when harvesting them. Since these are bulb plants, if you pull up the entire bulb, the plant won't grow back next year. So if you want to harvest ramps, just cut the leaves above the base of the bulb to allow the bulb to grow back next year. For eating, you can chop up the leaves of ramps and saute them with olive oil before adding to nearly any dish. Since these effectively taste like garlic, they're a great addition to most savory meals. Sassafras is actually a type of tree that's long been used as a source of food and medicine. Interestingly, people once used the root and bark of the sassafras tree to make root beer, hence the name, though most root beer manufacturers have since moved on to other methods. Although you can dig up the roots of the sassafras tree and boil them to make a tea, we don't recommend doing so on the trail since that damages the tree. Instead, you can actually take the leaves of the tree and use them to add flavor to your soups or other dishes on the trail. Lamb's quarters, also known as wild spinach, is a common weed that is everywhere on the trail. It is an edible plant that's high in vitamins and minerals including A, C, and K, as well as iron, calcium, and phosphorus. The leaves of lamb's quarters are green and triangular in shape with a powdery white coating on the underside. They have a mild, slightly nutty flavor that is similar to spinach or Swiss chard. The young leaves are most tender and flavorful and can be eaten raw in salads or cooked as a green vegetable. The older leaves can be a bit tougher but are still edible and often used in soups or stews. You can find strawberries on the trail in early summer. Most years you'll find them from about Virginia northward, but the majority of the trail is within prime strawberry habitat. These berries look and taste a whole lot like the strawberries you'll get in the store, though they're much, much smaller. The plants will actually have these beautiful clusters of white flowers in the spring, though you won't see any flowers come berry season. With strawberries, the most easily identifiable feature is the tiny seeds around the shallow pits of the berry, actually a drupe. But if you've eaten a strawberry before, you'll know what a wild one looks like. As with any berry, strawberries are a great snack in their own right, though you could get fancy and add them to your oats in the morning too. Chanterelle is another popular mushroom that you might find on the trail. These yellow-orange fungi have poorly defined gills, which is an important identification characteristic. Since chanterelle can be misidentified fairly easy with false chanterelle, which is poisonous, though usually not deadly, we strongly encourage you to consult a field guide before consumption. When in doubt, it's best not to eat them, as making a mistake in your identification can lead to serious illness. If you do find some proper chanterelle, they are best prepared by sauteing in oil and flavoring with garlic. They have a lovely velvety texture, which is a nice addition to any savory dish. If you enjoy berries, chances are pretty high that you've had some blackberries in your life. These scrumptious black and purple colored berries grow in clusters in large bushes, which you can find throughout the Appalachian Mountains during the summer months. That being said, be warned, blackberry bushes are very thorny, so forage with care. We've cut our hands more times than we can count on particularly thorny blackberry bushes, so go slowly when harvesting blackberries. You can actually eat most of the blackberry plant, such as the shoots and roots. However, the shoots should be peeled and cooked before consumption, and the roots are best when dried and infused with water to make a tea. Another very tasty option while you hike is wood sorrel, also called oxalis. It is a type of edible green leaf that you can find in forested terrain. Sometimes referred to as sourgrass, wood sorrel actually resembles clover, so it can be tricky to identify if you're just looking at the leaves. One way to identify wood sorrel, however, is to look at the entire plant itself. The plant can be up to 15 inches tall, but you'll usually find that it's about 8 to 9 inches in height. The leaves of the plants look like little heart-shaped leaflets, though you may also find white flowers in the spring. Wood sorrel can be eaten in small quantities, which offers a nice boost of vitamin C. The entirety of the plant is edible, and it's best eaten fresh right after harvesting. It is fairly sour though, so enjoy wood sorrel in moderation. There are a lot of different types of water lilies growing along the East Coast, but from all the research I have done on them, I have yet to find a toxic one. The flowers, seeds, and rhizomes of these cool plants are edible and can be eaten raw, dried, or cooked. Boiling the roots of this plant produces a thick liquid that can be used as a gargle for sore throats or as a remedy for diarrhea. Milk thistle, another plant you'll find along the Appalachian Trail, is a plant that grows tall and atop the spiny stalk is a pinkish purple flower that looks like something out of a Dr. Seuss cartoon. If you have the patience to peel back the spines along the stalks of the plant, chop up the stalks and boil them with the roots to add some veggies to your meal. Mulberries tend to be a bit harder for hikers to identify, simply because so many people haven't had them before. They actually look a lot like blackberries, though they come from a tree rather than a bush on the ground. There are many different types of mulberry trees out there, but most are quite small, no more than 9 feet high. Cattails are an abundant wetland plant with a unique fluffy flowering spike and flat blade-like leaves that reach heights from 3 to 10 feet. They are one of the most common water-loving plants and thrive in irrigation ditches, marshes, and on the edge of ponds. The lower parts of the leaves that are less fibrous can be chopped up and used in a salad. The shoots and stalks after removing the outer leaves can be eaten raw or boiled and taste a bit like a mix of cucumber and sweet corn. The young flower spikes, or the actual cattail portion that the plant is named after, can be roasted and eaten like a mini corn on the cob, and the yellow pollen that appears midsummer can be added to flour mixtures to make cattail bread or pancakes with added nutrients. Henbit is a small annual herb that is a member of the mint family and is known for its square stems, purple-tinged leaves, and tiny purple flowers that grow in clusters. The leaves and stems of henbit are both edible and have a slightly bitter flavor that is similar to spinach. The young leaves can be eaten raw, while the older leaves are typically cooked before eating since they can tend to be tough and fibrous. Henbit is a versatile ingredient in cooking and can be used as a fresh salad green, added to soups and stews, or cooked in a stir fry. It is also used in herbalism for its medicinal uses. One of the most iconic mushrooms, chicken of the woods, is a massive orange fungus that grows on the side of trees. If you've seen photos of it, you'll know it when you see it, so our best advice is to study pictures before heading outside. Some folks think that this fungus tastes like chicken, hence the name. Chicken of the woods tastes best when chopped up and sauteed with olive oil, though you can also add it whole to a host of different dishes as a garnish. Wineberry is actually an invasive species, though it does produce some very tasty raspberry-like berries for hikers to enjoy. You'll find them mostly in Pennsylvania, but they're found throughout the eastern United States as well. These plants grow in very thick bushes, and each berry looks like it's wrapped up in a very thick coat of prickly thorns. However, the thorns are quite soft, so it's more of a visual deterrent than something that can cause you harm. Wineberries are very sweet and juicy, so they're a great snack on a hot summer's day. Plus, you're unlikely to find these in a store, so enjoy them while you're on the trail. Chickweed is a small annual plant that can be found in spring and early summer along the trail. It is known for its delicate, tender leaves and stems that go well with anything. Chickweed has small white flowers that grow in clusters and small pointed leaves that are arranged in opposite pairs along the stem. The leaves and stems of chickweed are both edible and have a mild, slightly sweet flavor. The young leaves and stems of chickweed can be eaten raw in salads or added to sandwiches, while the older leaves and stems are typically cooked before eating, as they can be tough and fibrous. Chickweed can also be dried and used as a medicinal herb. One of the most popular and easily identifiable plants on the Appalachian Trail, blueberries are a tasty treat during the summer months. You'll often start seeing blueberries on a northbound hike by Tennessee, though many thru hikers note that they're particularly abundant around Roan Mountain. Identifying blueberries is pretty straightforward, as they look like much smaller versions of the blueberries you might find in a store. They grow in bushes that can be between 2 and 10 feet tall, and they have glossy blue-green leaves. The berries themselves are easily identifiable, so if you've eaten a blueberry before, you almost certainly know what they look like. As far as eating goes, blueberries are great on their own, or they can be an excellent topping to any oatmeal or similarly sweet meal. Plantain is a prolific plant that is native to Europe but has spread to many parts of the world, including North America and along the Appalachian Trail. It is an edible plant that is high in fiber, vitamins, and minerals, including vitamins A, C, and potassium. There are two common types of plantain, broadleaf plantain and narrowleaf plantain. Both types have long, narrow leaves that grow in a rosette pattern from a central stem. The leaves are green with prominent veins and a slightly bitter flavor. The young leaves of plantain can be eaten raw in salads or added to sandwiches, while the older leaves are typically cooked before eating, as they can be tough and fibrous. Plantain leaves can be boiled, sautéed, or added to soups and stews. The leaves can also be dried and ground into a powder to be used as a flour substitute. Edible wild grapes commonly found along the Appalachian Trail are likely to be the species of Vitis, a genus of climbing vines. They produce small, greenish to purplish berries that can be eaten raw or used to make jams, jellies, and wine. These grapes are usually ripe in late summer to early fall and are a sweet and juicy treat for hikers. If you've spent time in North America or Europe, you've almost certainly seen dandelions at some point in your life. In fact, many of us used to play with dandelions as a kid, so you're probably well acquainted with this common plant. Beyond simply being a nuisance to people's gardens, however, dandelions are a very easy to identify plant along the Appalachian Trail. Boasting their characteristic yellow flowers, these plants are a very convenient snack while you hike. You can eat them raw in a salad, or you can boil their roots to create a side dish for your meal. While you probably won't be able to make any on trail, you can also find dandelion wine in some specialty liquor stores in nearby trail towns for a treat on your rest days. Oyster mushrooms are one of the most commonly eaten types of mushrooms in the world. You can find it in damp areas along the majority of the Appalachian Trail, particularly in forested terrain. They offer a nice delicate flavor and often appear as little white bulbs with tan-colored gills underneath. To eat oyster mushrooms, most people sauté them, though you could grill, fry, or prepare them however you'd like. However, as with all mushrooms, proper identification is key. Oyster mushrooms could be mistaken for other types of fungi, so we'd recommend checking out a guidebook like Marone and Sturgeon's Mushrooms of the Northeast. A fiddlehead is effectively any baby fern that hasn't yet opened up to reveal its leaves. They look a lot like the curly scroll of a violin, which is where they get their name. You can often find these in early spring in forested areas, though you'll struggle to find them towards the middle of the summer. Hikers can harvest fiddleheads fairly easily, since you just need to cut off the top of the fiddlehead with a pocket knife. You can eat them plain, but they taste best when sautéed with olive oil and flavored with a dash of salt and pepper, plus they're high in omega-3s, iron, and fiber. Bittercress is a small herbaceous edible wild plant that is a member of the mustard family and is known for its pungent, bitter, peppery flavor. Bittercress grows in moist, shady areas, often along streams and rivers. It has small white or pink flowers that grow in clusters and has long, thin leaves that grow in a rosette pattern. The leaves, stems, and flowers of bittercress can all be eaten. The young leaves of bittercress are most commonly used in salads or as a garnish, as they add a sharp, spicy flavor to dishes. The older leaves can be cooked and used as a green vegetable, although their flavor is more bitter. Wild cherries. Although these aren't as common as some of the other berries, technically a drupe, you can find cherries on the Appalachian Trail. They're most commonly spotted in Maryland, and you'll have difficulty finding them any further north than that. Like all cherries, wild cherries grow on cherry trees. These type of cherry trees have large leaves with finely serrated edges. However, if you do eat wild cherries, be sure to spit out the seeds, as they can cause gastrointestinal problems when eaten in large quantities. Wild onions can also be found along the Appalachian Trail. They are recognizable by their distinct onion or garlic-like odor and flavor. They have long, narrow leaves that grow in a rosette pattern and small white or pink flowers that grow in clusters. The leaves, stems, and bulbs of wild onions are all edible. Wild onions are a versatile ingredient in cooking and can be used raw in salads, sautéed as a side dish, or added to soups, stews, and sauces. They have a strong, pungent flavor that is similar to domesticated onions and garlic. Chicory is a small purple flowering plant that's actually part of the dandelion family. It has been used by humans for millennia as a type of medicinal plant, as some people find it can help with an upset stomach. The plant has a very tough and hairy stem with light purple flowers, and you can actually use its leaves as a raw green in a salad if you're looking for a burst of nutrition. You can boil the roots of the chicory plant as a side dish for your meal. Some people actually enjoy roasting the roots of the chicory plant and grinding them up to make a coffee-light substitute, though this can be tricky on the trail.